Okay, imagine this. You're looking at a picture, maybe a horse, clear as day. Then someone changes just one single pixel, tiny dot, almost invisible. For you, obviously, still a horse. But what if, for a really smart AI, that one tiny change flips a switch, suddenly it sees a frog? Now, that's not just some thought experiment. It's actually the core of our deep dive today. We're digging into some fascinating source material, a paper called One Pixel Attack for Fooling Deep Neural Networks.
Yeah.
And it reveals this, well, frankly, astonishing vulnerability in AI systems we thought were pretty solid, specifically deep neural networks, DNNs.
Indeed. Yeah, recent research has definitely shown that, even small, carefully made changes can trip up DNNs. They misclassify things. But this paper, it pushes that idea to a real extreme, almost minimalist. The question is, can you really fool an AI just by changing one single pixel? And the answer, as we're about to unpack, is a pretty loud yes, which naturally has some big implications for how we understand these models and, importantly, how we secure them.
Right. So our mission today is to really explore how this one pixel attack actually works, what it reveals about, maybe, the hidden quirks of AI, and why it should matter to you with the tech you use every day.
Okay, so let's unpack this. To really get how audacious this one pixel thing is, maybe let's quickly recap what we usually hear about fooling AI. We often talk about adversarial images, right? Where subtle changes kind of spread out across many pixels confuse the AI. Like, think of it as this faint static that we can't see, but the AI just stumbles over it. But this deep dive, it's focused on something much, much more constrained.
Exactly. Yep, those previous attacks, they often tweaked quite a few pixels. Sometimes, like Figure 3 in the paper shows, you can even spot the changes if you look closely. What's really fascinating here is the researchers looked at this extremely limited case, just modifying one pixel. So it's not about broad noise, it's about finding that one crucial point, that single pixel, that just shatters the AI's understanding of the image. And the examples they give are just, well, they're mind-bending. This is where it gets really interesting. Look at Figure 1 in the source. You've got an image, clearly a ship, correctly ID'd, one pixel changes, boom. The AI calls it a car with 99.7% confidence.
99.7%. It's incredibly sure of the wrong answer.
Right. Or a horse, again, unmistakable to us, becomes a frog with 99.9% confidence. Or a deer suddenly transforms into an airplane with 85.3% confidence.
It's quite something. And these examples, they really show how imperceptible the change is to us humans, which makes this attack incredibly sneaky. And the motivation for looking at this extreme case, it's kind of twofold. First, it gives us new insights into the sort of geometry of the DNNs model in this high-dimensional space. Like, how are the decision boundaries shaped? You're essentially probing those boundaries with these incredibly precise, tiny cuts. And second, it's a really good test of perceptiveness, right? Minimizes the chance anyone would ever notice the attack.
And it's not just on simple, small images either, is it? Figure 2 shows it works on bigger stuff, too.
That's right. Figure 2 uses larger, more complex ImageNet examples. They even highlight the changed pixel with a red circle, though you'd struggle to see it otherwise. You see a cup misidentified as a soup bowl.
Okay.
Or a bassinet becomes a paper towel.
A paper towel. Okay.
And maybe my favorite, a teapot turns into a joystick.
A joystick. So how do they find that one specific pixel? It can't be random guessing, surely. You'd be there forever.
Exactly. No, it's not random. This is where a technique called differential evolution, or DE, comes into play. It's a type of optimization algorithm, part of a bigger family called evolutionary algorithms. It's pretty powerful. Now, the key thing is, unlike a lot of methods that need gradient information, which basically means they need to know a lot about the AI's internal structure, how it learns.
Right, like needing the blueprints.
Precisely. DE doesn't need that.
Okay, so what does that black box nature, as you call it, mean for us, for understanding how this attack could be used?
Well, it means it's a black box attack.
Yeah.
The attacker doesn't need to peek inside the AI's brain. They don't need special access. All they need is the output. What does the AI think this image is?
Yeah.
And how confident is it? Those probability labels. This makes the attack really flexible. You can apply it to lots of different DNNs. Even ones where getting that gradient information is hard or impossible, maybe the network isn't differentiable. DE is good because it's relatively simple, it's good at finding high-quality solutions, and it doesn't get easily stuck on okay, but not the best solutions, what we call local minima. It just efficiently searches for the best spot to change the pixel and what color to change it to.
Right, let's get to the results then, the numbers, because this really shows just how vulnerable these systems can be. They tested this on several standard DNNs, right? Allcom, 9N, VGG16, using common data sets like CIFAR-10 and ImageNet.
That's correct. And on a Kaggle CIFAR-10 dataset, the one-pixel attack was pretty successful. It fooled, 68.71% of images for the Allcom network, 71.66% for NIN, that's nearly three-quarters, and 63.53% for VGG16. And on average, for any given image, they could usually find a one-pixel change that would trick the AI into classifying it as between 1.8 and 2.1 other classes.
Wow, so almost 2/3 of images fooled on average, just by tweaking one pixel. That's significant. Were some networks clearly worse than others? Or is it generally a widespread issue?
It varies a bit, as those numbers show. Sometimes simpler networks can actually be, perhaps counterintuitively, a bit more vulnerable. Their decision boundaries might be less complex, easier to hop across with a single pixel nudge. The differences really reflect the subtle ways each specific network architecture learns to draw those lines between categories.
And what about the bigger, more complex images, the ImageNet ones? Did the attack still work there?
Yes, it did. For ImageNet, using the BVLC AlexNet model, they found that 16.04% of the test images could be successfully attacked by changing just one pixel. Now remember, ImageNet pictures are way bigger than CIFAR-10, about 50 times larger in terms of pixels, 227 by 227 versus 32 by 32. So the fact that it still works on 16% of those images shows this isn't just a small image problem. The vulnerability scales.
Okay, 16% is lower than 2/3, but still, for huge images, that's pretty remarkable for one pixel. And here's where it gets even wilder, I think. It wasn't just about fooling the AI into one specific wrong answer. The study found if you allowed modifying, say, 3 pixels or 5 pixels, the number of different wrong classes you could trick the AI into believing jumped up significantly.
Right. It's not just a single point of failure for one wrong category. A few pixels open up many potential misclassifications. It shows a broader sensitivity.
And get this is figure 9 in the paper. In some rare cases, one image could be manipulated into all 9 other possible target classes, just with single one-pixel changes. They show this image, originally a dog. With different one-pixel tweaks, it could be classified as an airplane, automobile, bird, cat, deer, frog, horse, ship, or a truck.
That example is truly mind-boggling.
It really highlights the gulf between how AI currently sees and how humans see, doesn't it? What does that extreme flexibility in misclassification tell you?
It reveals something pretty profound about the nature of these decision boundaries. They're not like thick walls separating categories. They're incredibly complex and, in places, razor thin. The research also found what they called vulnerable original target class pairs. For example, it was much easier to make a cat image look like a dog to the AI than it was to make it look like an automobile. It suggests some paths, some directions in this high-dimensional input space are just inherently easier to traverse for an attack. The boundaries are weaker there. They even found asymmetric cases, like it was relatively easy to turn ship images into airplane images with one pixel, but much harder to go the other way, from airplane to ship. It highlights these really specific quirks, these biases almost, in how the networks learn to separate categories. It's definitely not a simple, uniform landscape in there.
And just to be absolutely clear, this isn't some lucky accident they stumbled upon. The method they used, differential evolution, it's way better than just randomly picking pixels, right?
Oh, vastly superior. Yeah, the paper quantifies this. For the VGG16 network, using DE to find the attack pixel was 47.96% more efficient than just randomly searching. So it's a targeted, effective search strategy.
Okay, so we've established it works, it's efficient, it's sneaky. Beyond being a, fascinating technical curiosity, why should you, the listener, really care about this? What are the real-world stakes?
Well, it points directly to a critical security vulnerability. Think about any system that relies on AI vision, a self-driving car, for instance. If its system misclassifies a stop sign as, say, a yield sign because of one single undetectable pixel change, maybe it's a tiny bit of dirt. Maybe it's a deliberately placed speck.
Right.
The consequences could obviously be severe. And because it's a low-cost attack, you don't need massive computing power or inside knowledge necessarily. It makes it potentially easier for malicious actors to try and implement.
The paper does mention some defenses, things like noise reduction filters or adversarial training the AI on examples like these. How effective are those, really? Are we basically saying current systems are wide open?
Well, they help, but they're not foolproof. Not entirely. A lot of defense methods add extra processing steps. This increases the time the system takes to respond. For real-time stuff like security cameras monitoring a scene or that self-driving car needing instant recognition.
Yeah, milliseconds matter.
Exactly. That lag can be inefficient or even impractical. The fundamental issue, the one this research really highlights, is that current neural networks still struggle with what we call visual similarity. They have trouble ignoring these tiny changes that a human wouldn't even register. They can't easily generalize that two images that look identical to us should belong to the same category if one has this tiny adversarial tweak. So these kinds of novel attack methods like the one-pixel attack, they're actually crucial. They shine a light on these fundamental weaknesses and really push the field to develop more robust, more reliable AI. It's less about saying everything is broken, more about precisely identifying where the blind spots are.
It really has been a fascinating deep dive, just contemplating that a single invisible pixel can completely throw off a sophisticated AI with such high confidence. It's genuinely eye-opening.
Absolutely. And this research and the work following it isn't just about finding flaws. It's fundamentally about understanding these systems better. Only by understanding the weaknesses can we build stronger AI. The paper hints at future work, too. Maybe using even more advanced evolutionary algorithms, or exploring completely different machine learning paradigms. Things like neuroevolution, maybe, could lead to models that are inherently more flexible or resilient. And, it's possible we'll see similar kinds of minimalist attacks explored in other areas, too, like natural language processing or speech recognition. The implications could be quite broad.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What will it actually take for an AI to understand an image in a way that resonates with human perception, where it isn't fooled by a single, almost meaningless pixel? What does that future of truly robust AI look like? Definitely something to think about.